Hi guys, it's Marek. Um, I would like to explain to some of you how to do the assignment from the week 2 from programming and algorithms. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of hanging out, after lectures and talk about the problems. So I hope through those videos I can explain some stuff that I understand. Maybe there is something that I will be very bad at, and that would be great if some of you try to explain that to me. Anyway, to be quick about this problem, um, I'll just start. So what you saw on the lecture is sorry, is the fact that we have to. So first of all, you have to describe what you're doing. So this is what I'm doing here. So you put that hash symbol for to tell Python, hey, Python, don't code it. This is just my comment. That does not mean anything to you. Okay, so Python skips that one. Then okay, so my first step will be ask for a decimal point number. So this is again my comment. So I ask for this is my variable for um, input decimal, and I always use it. You can see the idle or whatever it's called PyCharm is highlighting all the in decimal in my code, which is actually if you have a look in here, this is in purple, which means I'm assigning something to it. I say this is if that's purple, it means I'm assigning something to it, and if it's blue, it means I'm using it. So in here, I assign it. I say input whatever I put in, and that's going to be my prompt. So input decimal number, and then I'm gonna, and you can see it here. This is that line. So that shows input decimal number, and now you can input something. So this is something I wrote after I run the program here. Okay, so this is what I input. So this is how I assign this in decimal. And then I use it. I use it here, I use it here, I use it here. I never change it actually. You can see I never change it. Sometimes you change it as long as you go with the program, but in here I just one time I just assign it and just leave it for usage. Okay. So, and always when you input something, you have to check if the input is right. Okay, so see if the input is integer. Okay, I don't want to work on floats just yet. Maybe in the future you can try to make a converter that converts floating points, which is basically fractions. But right now, I just want to make sure. So I know there's something like and always remember you can Google things. So Python, and I'm looking for um, is integer, right? And I did, oh, sorry, and I did find it, and I read it, and I don't know why it didn't work with me. So, but there's something like this, and it gives you false or true. But it didn't work. So you have to be always creative. If something doesn't work one way, make sure that it really doesn't work. It's not just some silly mistake. Probably from my side, this time it was just a silly mistake or something. I just don't know exactly the usage of that. Anyway, this is my. So what I did was I put my in decimal. So this is something. It doesn't know. I don't state what that is. Is it integer or is it a floating point, or is it a string, word, a sentence? I didn't say what it is. Just give me an input. Whatever you put, that's going to be your in decimal. So if I run it now and I say uh, blah blah blah, it's actually going to give me. Oh, see, I didn't check if it's text. I should check if the input is text. Sorry, so I can say something like, please don't put text in there. Instead, right now I have red error, which usually is what you get when the program doesn't work and you get your exit code 1, which means it's not great. The exit code that you want to see is 0. 0 means everything went right and we are happy. If it's 1, something went wrong. Anyway, so again, if I run it and I say 1.5, it says please insert an integer. So I want nothing after the decimal point, okay? And that's what I'm doing here. The input in here is a floating point, so that's 1.5. And now I'm asking, okay, could you make it integer. So we don't look, we disregard whatever happens after decimal. So I just take 1 in here. So that's what's happening here is 1 minus 1.5, and that indeed doesn't equal to 0. And then, so I ask if, okay, I say if that is true, so 1 minus 1.5 doesn't equal 0, and that is true, please execute this. And print this, and you can see it here. Please insert an integer, and I'm asking exit and give me 1. And you can see there is 1. Something went wrong, didn't work out, and this is 1. And how did I find this? I just Googled it. I just went here and I said Python how to end program, right? Sorry, I didn't even know that it's called exit. I just said how to end it. I want to just end program before it goes all the way through. And it says, hey, there it is. Just write exit and you can put your argument of exit, which is 1, and it's good to kind of let people know what happened. And that could be some error. You can say exit code 458 and say go to the manual and see what that 458 is, why that error occurred. Anyway, so we go, so now negative. Okay, so in case of negative, so in decimal is lesser than 0, is smaller than 0. Print, please insert a positive integer, exit with 2. So again, I say this is the second problem here. That's the first problem and the second problem. Anyway, that's my understanding. Maybe this is wrong, but that's what I usually do. I put 2. And then, okay, so in case of 0, if it's 0, it wouldn't work in my code in here that actually converts the decimal into binary. So I need to make that case. So I say if it's 0, just say decimal is 0. It's decimal 0 is binary 0, and binary 0 is decimal 0. And that's it. That's all you have to say. This symbol here is line break. So you can see if I go and run my program and say 0. I think my mom is calling me. Yeah, that's my mom. I have to postpone it. And you can see the answer. So decimal 0 is binary 0. That's this. And then there is I don't even have to put that space in here. I can just leave it like this. And that's our enter. That's our line break. Enter. Binary 0 is decimal 0. And that's it. That's all you have to say. And then, okay, so if decimal integer input is input correctly. Is that even English? Okay, anyway, if it's correct input, then let's start calculation. So, okay, so I'll need a decimal, like a kind of a buffer here. So I called it process decimal. So I'm going to process it. I want to keep my in decimal intact. I want to keep it as my original data. And then I create new variable that I'll just, at the beginning, I'll just say this is the same. And I'll just kind of strip it slowly. I'll do the, the calculation that you saw on the lecture that divide by 2, you just have to remember to subtract the module of this by 2, right? So here we can see, there is 1, so we have to take it, and then we can actually divide it by 2. In other way, if I just divided this by 2, I would get 0.5 in here. I don't want that 0.5, so I just have to subtract this from this. Anyway, so process. So I got that here. Okay, so that's something I will be processing. I called it process decimal. I didn't call it A. I didn't call it B because I want to remember this is my process decimal. And then I put something like power because I'll start with the power of 0. You'll see where. You can imagine I'll be using it with 2. So 2. Oh no, sorry, 10 because I'm converting from sorry, from decimal to binary. So at the moment I'll be using that power to the power of with the 10. Anyway, and then out binary. So this is my buffer for binary. I'll be using it. You can see I assign it here, and I use it here, because of the color. This is purple, so I assign, and this is blue and this is blue, and this is when I use it. I think it's good to remember it when you look at the code. You kind of remember where do you use it and where do you assign it, and maybe you don't want to assign it somewhere and you kind of just catch it very quickly. Okay, so here you can see if you stop the video, you can read my comment here, and it says so step by step. Step one, I calculate the modulo of process decimal. So if there is a modulo of 2, if it's basically 3, 5, 7, an odd, is that an odd number? I think it's odd. Then there is 1, and if it's 2, if it's 0, 2, well, 0 we don't go anywhere with 0. But if it's 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on, so I think it's even. Maybe I mixed it. Anyway, then it's 0. Okay, and then out binary. So this is my buffer. This is for my binary. I slowly start to store the binary number. I can't do it just like that. I can't just say, well, probably there is a way, but we're supposed to do it with the um, while function. So I slowly start doing basically this. Okay, this is my input. This is my decimal number here. This is an example. I'll show you how it works. So this is my 1988. This is my year of birth, and I use it as the as an example. And what I want my program to do is to strip it slowly, step by step. So divide it by 2, divide it by 2, and see what's the modulo, and then have this number here, right? This is the way to convert decimal into the binary, and this is how you write the binary afterwards. So this is 1 1 1 1 1 0 0 0 1 0 0. Okay, and this is how you want to write it. And this is, in other words, in decimal, this is 1988. Okay. So this is this is the first while loop I wanna use. This is what the first while loop is supposed to do. And okay, so this is my while loop here. And Google sorry, I didn't tell you. Just Google how to use the while loop, right? So you write Python. I did put it on the Facebook group, so you should find it. But you can write Python while loop. We have while loop, and we have also for loop. We have 2 loops in Python. Okay. So Google them, check how they work, what's the structure, read about it, and then you should be able to kind of understand what's happening here. Okay. So basically, you say while something is true, as long as this is true, so as long the process decimal isn't equal to 0, just do whatever I'm asking you here. So just make sure, because if you don't make sure that's gonna happen at some stage, this is gonna go forever. If you just say, as long as decimal isn't equal to a, and then you put a number there, and it will never equal to a, whatever you're gonna do to that number, then it's gonna just go and do the any calculation you wanna do, and as long as you don't assign a to process decimal, this is gonna just go forever. So just make sure you're going towards this situation. You're going towards 0, and you can see here I'm going towards 0. At some stage, if I go one step further, it becomes 0, right? Because I subtract 1 from 1 and I get 0, right? So I'm going slowly to 0, and at some stage it becomes 0, and my program says, okay, I'm finished with that while loop. Okay, and what's going on here? So probably you'll need a little bit of imagination when you work with programming, unfortunately, and some mathematical skills, because sometimes you kind of have to understand what's going on, what's going to happen. So what I'm doing here, this number out binary is still not being a binary number per se. This is still a decimal number. If I run it and I write 188, this one here isn't a binary, it's just representation that you see and you say, yeah, as a human being, I can see this is binary. But I still use the logic of Python, which for the convenience of humans, uses by design by default the decimals. So basically, what you have to do is kind of try to create a decimal that looks like this. So this is like thousand, million, billion. So 11 billion, 111 million, no thousands, and hundred, right? So how to do it? You slowly add to this number. So first you add this, right? So you calculate whatever is the module of the input, your input. This is this one here. So to the power of, and I asked for the power to be 0 first. So I add to something that was at the beginning 0. I say to this 0, add whatever I have in here, that modulo, okay? I add to the number that I had before, that was 0 before, and then I say the modulo is whatever it is. It's 1 or 0. There's nothing else. If you take the modulo of 2, it might be 0 or 1, nothing else. So, and then you add this bit, which says to the power 10 times 10 to the power of whatever the step we are on. So at the beginning it's 0, so I place it here. Then it's going to be 1, so I'll place it here, and then it's going to be 2. I'll place it here, 3, 4, 5, and so on, as long as the calculation goes on. Okay, so it's going to place it slowly and create that binary depending on the length, the size of. If I put, let's say, bigger number, the binary becomes a bit longer. But that's going to continue putting those modulos and multiply them by the power of 10, as long as it doesn't go to 0, right? Because that's how I designed the while loop. Okay, and then I have to ask, so the first step is kind of, we're happy with this step, but we have to make sure that with the next step, we'll add 1 to the power, okay? So this is the kind of stuff that you have to get used to. You can say power equals power plus 1. And I know it kind of doesn't make sense as long as it's not a variable. And that's why we call them variables. Sorry for that. So this is something that we can change. So we can say, so now this 10, that something that was 10 before is 10 plus 1. So now this is 11. Okay, so this is absolutely normal, and you will do it a lot. And then you have to do the same with the process decimal. You have to process that decimal to become this. Okay, so we have to say, okay, so remember to take the modulo from that process decimal and then divide it by 2. So if it's 0, it's 0, we do nothing. But if it's 1, you have to take that 1 from it and then divide it by 2. Okay, and then go back. As long as this is not 0, as long as we didn't go to the moment when this is actually 0. So if it's not 0, go and do it again. So see what's the modulo of that new process decimal that I just created here. See what's the modulo of it, and then do my another bit in here, okay? And then add the power, change the process decimal, whatever that is, go back, see if it's 0. If it's not 0, go and do it over and over again, okay? And that's how I get this number. And this is, I hope you get what I'm saying. This is still a decimal number. That's how Python can see it. This is decimal in Python, but you can, as a human being, you look at it and you say, yeah, no, that's definitely the binary for whatever I put in here, right? Okay, so now let's go back from binary to decimal. This is a bit easier because you can just go and calculate it very quickly. Oh no, sorry, it isn't that easy. So first of all, you have to see what's the length of that binary number, because you want to know when to stop with this with this while loop. So how to check it? Python, how to check length of okay, of an integer. It isn't that straightforward, but you can see that it can be done. You have to just kind of understand what that does. So as I explained here in my code at the beginning, you can kind of manipulate how Python is looking at your at the object you're put it in there. So you can say that 1855 is an integer, but it's also kind of a floating point, because if you put decimal point there and just say there's 1,000 zeros behind, yeah, that's still the same thing. And if you say this is text, this is just 1 and 8 and 5 and 5 next to each other, and I don't care what does it mean and in what numeric system it is, it's just a sequence of those characters, and I don't care that they make actual number. So you can look at the same object in different way, and that's how you do it. So at the beginning, if you write one, again, if I write 1988, which is what I use for that example. First, okay, so what Python thinks, it's okay, so you give me integer, that's fine. But I can manipulate it. I can say, okay, so now in this instance here, so binary length, and I go out binary. So I created some out binary here, which is my output, and this is that number, and this is an integer. That's why I could make something like plus and minus and so you can do calculations on it. If it was a string, you wouldn't be able to do calculations on it. So Python thinks this is an integer. But I say, hey, listen, could you look at it as a string and give me a length of that string? And this is still altogether is an integer. Is an integer that tells you how long is that string, this one here. Okay, so I store it in here. So I want that information to be stored. And then I say, okay, so out decimal, I'll just initiate it. So I just say, okay, so let's make it 0, because I'm going to be adding to this as I was adding to our out binary. So I'll be calculating our out decimal from 0, and I'll just add to it. And then power, I have to reset it to 0 because I was adding 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. So computer thinks that power is some number bigger than 0. I want it to be 0 again, because I'll be doing this calculation here. Okay, and I have to design this while loop the way it ends when I'm finished with this with processing this number, basically. So I say, as long as binary length is not equal to 0, so at some stage I can imagine it will become 0, and I have to make sure, and I make sure in here that it will become 0 at some stage, that no matter what even if it's 1,000, I'll do that loop for 1,000 times, and then at some stage, after I subtract 1 from it, it will become 0, and that's the moment when it stops. And that's when I want it to stop, because I want to do that calculation for 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, and I want to stop here, and I want to go on with nothing. Okay, and then I have my buffer, my decimal the output decimal that I calculate from my previously calculated binary number, and I just go, okay, so add to whatever I had before, and I want that, and this is something strange I did before. What is this about? Let me see. So this is integer of a string. All right, because okay, I know what I did here. So this is an integer, right? This is me asking Python, could you look at it as it was, as if it was a string, please? And then I can just say which character of a string I want to look at. But then could you make it an integer again, please, so I can calculate it? And it makes sense, actually. It's going to do it. So first I take that integer, which is this, and I say, okay, so we start with the binary length. So in this case, there's 11 characters here, okay? 11, the length of it, of this is 11. So in here we have 11. So it's going to take the 11 minus 1th element of this. So we have 1, 2, well, just remember, when you count in programming, it's always 0. The first element is 0th, and then first and second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth and ninth and 10th. So now we're looking at this. I take 0 with this funny little code, and I ask for 0 now, and multiply it by 2 to the power of, at the beginning, that's going to be 0. That's how we calculate, and this is how it looks. This is what we are doing now. So we have power to 0, to 1, to 2, to 3, to 4, and so on, and we have to the power of 10 at the end. And then we have so what I did here, oh yeah, so and that's my binary number going from the back of it, from this number, and I was just saying, yeah, we're looking at this one. So we're looking at this number first, and then this is the power, and this is the what we get from it. So we multiply this by 2 to the power of 0, which is 0, and then whatever you multiply by 0 is 0, so we go to 1, and then so we could take that 1 and we multiply it by 2 to the power of 2, okay, so it's 4, and there you go. And then we go 0, 0, 0, and then another 1, so we multiply this one by times 2 to the power of 6, so that's 64. So we have 4, 64, and so on. So we have 128, 256, 512, and 1024. Okay, so these are the numbers that are that come from the multiplication of these ones by 2 to the power of, and you have the powers here. Okay, so this is 10. And then if you sum it up, you have to add it to each other, and that should be, and you can see this is my 1988 and 1988. I didn't say, hey, could you take this number here? No, I summed that up, and I did my calculations back and forth. So I went from here to here and from here to here, and that's what I'm doing now. So this is what I'm doing, what I'm talking about now. So we are here. So as I said, we're looking in the first step, we're looking at this number, and I multiply it by 2 to the power of 0 at the beginning. And then okay, and then I ask, okay, so now subtract from the length of the binary 1, because we did the first step, and then add 1 to the power, because we will be multiplying by the power of 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay, so next step, we're checking if the binary length isn't 0 now, because we subtracted 1. But because we had 11, now it's 10. So yeah, no, it's not 0, we can go on. So again, we look at our out decimal. So whatever I stored before stays. For now, it was just 0, but if whatever it was, it stays, and I add it to another step. Okay, so I say, okay, so this is my 9th element. Okay, so I look at the string or blah blah blah, as I said before, and I'm looking at this element here, and I multiply it by 2 to the power of, in this case, 1, because we added 1. Okay, and now we do our typical take 1 from binary length and add to the power, and again checking if the length isn't 0, and again, as I said, it was 10 before, so now it's 9, it isn't 0, we continue, and so on, right? I hope you get the idea of while loop now. And now, because that should give you, this calculation here should give you the same decimal as we put as in decimal, although I didn't use it here, I just use it as long as calculation of binary, and then I didn't use it here, okay? I only used it here for printing the final kind of conversion, right? So print, quotation mark, decimal, and then you have to kind of have a look at this, and you'll understand what I'm doing here. The comma means we go to some other representation. So you can print a text, whatever text is not a variable. You just write a text in quotation mark, but then you have to put a comma, and then you have you put your variable. Okay, remember about spacing. If you don't put a space in here, you'll just mash it together. You don't want it together, you want to keep a space here and then comma, and that space doesn't matter. That space, I can put 1,000 spaces here, it doesn't matter now, because it's not going to print those spaces. That space is only for aesthetics, because I'm just printing a variable here. So this is my, what put in. Okay, this is my 1988 that I put in. Okay, and then again, comma, quotation mark, space, because I want that space in here, is binary, space, quotation mark, comma, out binary. So this is my calculated binary. And then blah blah blah, and then we print, and that backslash n, remember that's a backslash, it's not slash, it's backslash n, that's my line break. I have to keep it in the quotation mark, otherwise Python wouldn't know what that is. And I put it in here. So I go down and I write again binary space and so on. Out binary is here, and then is decimal is here, and then out decimal is here. Out decimal isn't the same well, it should be the same as a number, but I didn't use it as the same variable. I used in decimal and out decimal separately, and that's how I achieve going from decimal to binary and from binary to decimal. And at the beginning, at the end, I say meow because I have a cat. Okay, so I hope you get what I'm trying to convey. So basically, whatever you know, and then if you want to do something, go and Google it. Just write Python and just how to do something I want to do. If you don't, if you say something like how to make sure integer is string, and it kind of doesn't know what you're saying. Although Google is kind of clever, so it's probably gonna somehow understand what you're saying. But if one phrase doesn't find what you're looking for, try to rephrase it. So how to, even like simple words, how to int to string, and then that's gonna give you a straighter answer. Anyway, if you get stuck, it means you might be looking into a wrong direction. Maybe Google is very smart and it's gonna help you a lot. So listen to Google and maybe it's gonna, okay, so into, oh yeah, maybe that's gonna be easier. And there you go. Maybe there's an easier explanation if you use the kind of um the, how do you call it, the Google suggestions. Yeah. And one last thing that I want to say. I started in here. So I usually, when I code, I always kind of ask, could you print whatever I'm doing? So print binary out. So in this case, if I do my calculation and I go to hello and I do exactly the same, so it's going to ask me for a number. I do one, and that's kind of messy. You can see this isn't what you want to achieve, but at least you can see, okay, so that printed 0 first, and then so that's my 0 here, and then it printed again 0 because that was 0 again, and then so on. And you can see kind of what the computer does underneath the hood. You can see how the while is being processed. Well, the while loop is processing your decimal and your binary. So kind of, I like to put my print, and I like to, this is the print binary length, length. So this is the binary length here. So I can see, okay, it is 11 actually. So I have my answer here. This is 11 digits, and it says it's 11 digits. Fantastic. So I did something right. And then I see, okay, so could you tell me what is this, and print it out and print this out, so I can see exactly what I'm doing. And then at the end, you can save it as something else, or you can even just delete it from your original code. But I like to kind of keep the old code in case I still have like a little bug. And you just get rid of all those print, and just add the final print in here. Obviously, this is very simple um, assignment. So in the future, it's going to be way different. And actually, print itself isn't the best way to kind of check what's going on. There are better. At least I know that in C. I don't know in Python, but I know in C you use the error print that kind of gives you an idea what's going on in there a bit more than just print out what's that variable is. But we'll see in the future. Anyway, I hope that gives you that first kick. I know we don't have enough time at during the classes to go through it. I think Mark, our lecturer, is very good, but we just don't have enough time to go through it. So I hope that kind of helps you out a little bit. I'll scroll down very slowly now, so you can actually rewrite what I just wrote. I think it's better than not having a clue how to do it. Okay, so I think I'm not going to post it anywhere. Don't copy paste ever. Rewrite every time you do something. Rewrite. So I can scroll down very slowly now, so you can yeah, so you can rewrite it. Just pause my video and just rewrite it. Make any changes that you want, and I hope um, you'll um, you'll get what's that first assignment, and maybe that first thing, that first icebreaker will get you coding in the future a bit easier. Okay, thanks, and see you tomorrow, I think.